I'll start with, again, the same data that I mentioned earlier, but for the US and China. If you measure output in China and the US at what's called international prices, a common set of prices, or what's called purchasing adjusted prices, the Chinese economy is bigger than the US economy. China is currently about 18% of world output, and the US is about 15.5% of world output. This is a fundamental change from 40 years ago. In 1980, the US was about 21% of world output, and China was about 2.5% of world output. Between 1980 and 2020, China grew at a rate of nearly 10% per year. When you have economic growth at 10% per year, it means your economy doubles in size every 7 years. So in 35 years, it doubles 5 times, or 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 32-time increase. And that's basically what happened with China. Why, by the way? Because China started incredibly poor, and it caught up to a significant extent. When you're poor, there's lots of headroom. Electrification, education, building roads, building rail, and that's what China did extremely effectively for 40 years. Excellent economic management for 40 years. And now, they didn't close the gap in living standards, because the living standards, by this measure that I keep referring to, puts China at about 30% of the US level. But since China's 4 times the population, it makes it a larger economy in total. Well, let me just give you the upshot of this. This is freaking out American policymakers. It's what a psychologist or a psychiatrist would call a neurotic reaction. Because no one gave China the permission to be bigger than the United States. And that wasn't supposed to happen. In 1992, the US achieved unipolar status, the sole superpower. And that was supposed to last for many decades. And lo and behold, 30 years later, it ended. And the American reaction is, we are so smart, we are so good, we are so effective, that China must really have cheated at every moment. And they really must be our enemy also. This is extremely dangerous. It's either us or them at the top of the world. And only a US-led world is a safe world. Otherwise, we're all going to be destroyed by China. It is, in my view, a fantasy misunderstanding. I'll start again with the basic proposition. China's living standards are about 1/3 of the US. China has decades of economic development to make. China faces major challenges. Population is now starting to decline quite significantly. China will probably be under 1 billion people by the end of this century, possibly 800 million, according to the UN forecasts, which are mechanical, but still showing how significant. China will age very rapidly. There are many, many challenges. China's not out to take over the world. But the U.S. whole vision is U.S. is the world leader. It's the self-image. It's what I'm afraid is taught at the Kennedy School of Government often.
My question would be the following one. If we assume that this conflict is going to end in a way that's not going to be a defeat, an explicit defeat of Russia, do you see that having any consequences of the future role of dollar as an international currency and what do you think is going to happen on the US Treasury bond market in the future? Thank you.
Just in a general word about the role of the US dollar. It has been a source of a lot of US power and prerogative. The fact that about 60% of world trade is denominated in dollars and settled in dollars. And the US banking system is the predominant mechanism for clearing transactions. And the SWIFT system, which is how the US banking system settles transactions, is the instrument by which the US excludes Russia, for example, under the sanctions.